Talks about wanting coaching, and the industry's been inundated with role play tools that most reps won't use because nobody likes to do the role play. Nobody wants to put in that level of work. When we talk about coaching as a 100% commission sales rep and owner of companies that has to be out there selling, we want action and insight right away, but we need it in a consistent delivery mechanism, right? And so when I'm working with a coach and I'm asking for feedback on a deal, I want it when I need it. I don't want to have to schedule a week out. I need to be able to get that feedback so I can continue to stay in motion. I'm going to go through a deal review today with VAL, which is Value Coach AI from Value Selling Associates. I'm going to use a real deal that I am currently working, and we're going to see what VAL is able to do for me and with me. So what you're going to see is you're going to see her pop up on the screen here in a second, and we're going to kick off this conversation.
Hey, I am Val. What are you working on?
Hey, Val, I'm working on a early stage deal, and I'd like to do a deal review.
What deal are we reviewing, and what business issue is the buyer trying to address?
So I've had two phone calls so far. This was a deal that I sourced through outbound prospecting. Have met twice with two individuals, Eric and Keith, for a medtech company that has, I think it's about 290 million in annual revenue, and a growth objective of 31% increase in revenue in 2026. But I haven't been able to get the time bound or focused components of either Eric or Keith's primary business issue.
Good. Early stage is exactly where that usually shows up. Right now, your biggest risk is you are still selling into a goal, not a business issue, so there is no real reason for them to change anything or bring in power. When you met with Eric and Keith, what did they say is getting in the way of hitting that 31% growth objective in their world?
Yeah, Eric focuses on sales, and Keith is focused on manufacturing and operations. The reason they both kind of responded to my outreach is that the growth strategy the organization is using is AI transformation. They, like other companies, have deployed AI into silos in the organization. They're not seeing the types of returns that they expect or the efficiency impacts achieving the goals that they want. And so they've been looking for ways to be part of that AI transformation. They like some of the technology and the approach that we use. So we've been having conversations around that. Eric is really focused on, according to him, a 21% increase in average deal size, which, based on the number of deals they run in a given year, would net result to roughly, back in napkin math, 19 to $20 million in uptick revenue. I haven't been able to get as clean of a business issue for Keith.
That 21% average deal size is close, but it is still not a business issue until it is time bound and owned. Otherwise, it is just a nice idea.
He has to do it by the end of 2026. He confirmed that, but he did not give me any consequences for missing that number.
Okay. Without the consequence, the value is still assumed, and assumed value does not create urgency. When you asked what happens if they miss it, how did he answer, or did you not ask yet?
I haven't asked yet.
Keep it simple and let him do the math out loud. Say, Eric, if you finish 2026 and average deal size is flat, what breaks? What number do you miss? And what gets cut or changes because of it? Can you get that asked on your next call with Eric?
Yeah, we have a call scheduled for the 10th, and I can make that one of the strategic questions I need to ask. I'm also struggling to expand out beyond these two, right? I want to multi-thread it to some other individuals because I'm not convinced, and they haven't told me that they are the ultimate buyer.
You are right to be skeptical. Eric and Keith sound like functional leaders with pieces of the business issue, not power for an AI transformation. The clean move is to use the business issue you already have to earn the introduction. On the 10th, ask Eric the consequence question, then ask who else has to own that 21% outcome with him and who can approve the investment to change it. Then ask him to bring that person into the next conversation. Do you think Eric will make that intro if you tie it directly to hitting his 2026 number, or is he likely to protect access?
I think I would need to be very careful about how I approach it. You have any suggestions on how I might be able to word that?
Yeah. Keep it buyer centered and specific to his number, not your need to multi thread. Try Eric if we are serious about moving average deal size by 21% by end of 2026. We should probably pressure test this with the person who can approve the investment and the teams that have to change how they sell. Who besides you will be accountable for that number, and can we get them into the next conversation so we do not build a plan that cannot get funded? Would that sound natural in your voice?
Yeah, I could do that. I could do that. I also believe I'm prepared to ask Keith the business, or Eric, sorry, the other one, the business issue that he's chasing as well. One of the things that I am concerned about is that we have uncovered there's no procurement team, but there is legal. And we've started to talk about how long it takes their legal team to review things. There is a infosec or IT committee that will have to evaluate the product. But my understanding from some of my external research is that this group is very young and doesn't really have well developed ways for effective and fast evaluation of tools, especially things that challenge the way that they've historically done technology rollouts. I'm kind of curious if you've got any guidance on how I may be able to weave into my conversations questions that will help me make that clearer or be able to scope how long, in terms of dates and times, it will take for that review.
You are jumping to plan before you have power and value nailed. It is not wrong to map legal and InfoSec early, but the only thing that makes those groups move fast is a leader owned business issue with a real consequence. So I would do it in that order on the 10th, consequence first, then access. After you get consequence, ask this one clean question to surface the real buying motion. Eric, if we decide this is worth doing, what is the internal path to get it approved, starting with legal and InfoSec, and who owns each step? Then is your data. He has not done it before, or he is not close enough to the process. Which one do you want to use first on the 10th consequence of missing the 21% or the internal path question?
I think I'm going to need to use them both. I'll use them both. I can do that at the beginning. I can set the agenda in advance of the 10th, make sure they're prepared. I may even reach out via email before the 10th and ask a couple of those questions, or see if he's got 15 minutes to ensure that that time on the 10th is accurate. They're pushing for a capabilities overview, and I don't believe that we have enough of the business issue, their primary stuff. We have the problems, we have the solutions, which will serve as the map for how we demo the product. I just don't believe we have enough on the business issue side, and so I want to be prepared.
Use both, but sequence matters. Start with consequence because that is what earns the right to slow down the capabilities overview. If they are pushing for capabilities, I would be direct with Eric before you agree to that meeting structure. Something like, Eric, happy to walk through capabilities, but I do not want to guess what matters and burn your team's time. If we spend the first 10 minutes tightening the 21% business issue, and what happens if it does not move by end of 2026, I will tailor the rest of the overview to what will actually change that number. Fair? Then on the call, you go consequence first, then you ask the internal path question. The deal sounds early but real. The clear next step is your 10th call with an agenda that starts with consequence and ends with identifying who else owns the 21% outcome and the approval path. Do you have that call on the calendar already for the 10th? And are you willing to send the agenda email today?
Yes, it is on the calendar. Would you mind putting a recommended agenda in the chat box for me as a starting point?
Yep. I sent a draft agenda into the chat box. You can copy and tweak. Good. You are locked in. Want to go over?
No, this has been great. I do have one last question. Help me understand where my gaps are against the qualified prospect formula.
Right now, based on what you told me, here is how I see your QPF. Vision match. Partial. They like the technology and the approach, and they are engaging. But I did not hear the buyer say back, in their words, why your approach is different from other options or doing nothing. You are close, but not confirmed yet. Value emerging. You have a plausible value story, 21% average deal size, and your back of napkin, 19 to 20 million. The gap is buyer confirmed consequence until Eric can say what breaks if they miss it, and ideally put his own number on it. Value is still assumed. Power. Not yet. You suspect Eric and Keith are not power, and you have not named who can approve resources for an AI transformation. You do have a reasonable path asking Eric to bring in the person who owns funding and is accountable for the number. Plan. Early, you have a meeting on the 10th, which is a real next step, but there is not a mutual written plan yet tied to when value will be realized, and the legal and infosec steps are still assumptions. If you tighten one thing on the 10th, make it value plus power in the same conversation. Consequence of missing the 21%, then who besides Eric has to own it and can fund it?
I like it. I like it. Can you put a QP formula rundown into the chat box for me so I can reference back to it?
Done. I dropped the QPF rundown into the chat box so you can reference it later. You are locked in.
Awesome. Thank you, Val. I appreciate it.
You got it. I sent both the draft agenda and the QPF rundown into the chat box.
All right. There we go. Wow. A little bit to practice and unpack there. I'm going to pull those assets, get a little bit more specific on what we identified and what I need to do. But yeah, short, sweet, to the point, identified some gaps, identified a couple things I hadn't thought of. So all in all, that's when I need the coach. She's there. I just spin her up and ask the questions. So I'm going to do another one with a late stage deal and let's see what happens with that one.